I'm missing you. So stay the night.
It's your favorite 91.9 FM. Sigalovich's Talia Mar. It's called Stay the Night. 15 minutes after 1. It is Medical Mondays powered by First Care Solutions. Today on Medical Mondays, we're going behind the scenes, professional medical training. When a crisis hits the ward and you want a team that's practiced the moment before it happens, that's clinical simulation. Rehearsing the high-risk, low-frequency events to do so the first time with a real patient, Dr. Stephen Holt. Hello, sir.
Hello, Paul. Hello, Kamo.
Hi there, friend.
How are you guys doing?
Good, thanks, and you?
Top of the range. Thank you.
Top of the range.
Sure.
Does that mean you played golf this weekend?
I wish. I played paddle.
You played paddle?
Yeah.
How's your knees?
Oh, so.
I was about to say, the last time I told you I played paddle, you were telling me about, there's so many injuries coming from that, and yeah.
Yeah, you are playing paddle.
Here you are.
Absolutely.
We haven't seen you at Switch Playground for a little bit, I won't lie.
Long story.
I know. I'm going to tell Ryan on you, eh?
Also, it's summer, the guns are out.
Yeah.
Steve is showing
Yeah,
us what
Jane,
he's
I think
made
so.
of.
Yeah, baby.
I saw if you see the shirt he's wearing today, it's crazy. Have you seen these guns? These guns are crazy.
I can see the guns.
You can
He's
see
right
the guns, I
opposite
told
me.
you.
And the color of the t-shirt is complementing the Mickey blue eyes.
Oh, gosh. You guys, what has happened to you guys this weekend?
Are we extra nice? Are we too nice?
Very nice.
We're just
today.
happy to see you.
Yeah,
You've become like more than a friend of the
Yeah,
show.
you're
like
a
a
family.
regular
Family of the
feature.
show.
Family.
It's great
Exactly.
to be here, guys. Thank you.
Okay. Are we going to jump straight into
Jump
it?
straight in.
Okay, so we're talking simulation now, right? For those of us sitting at home thinking, okay, simulation, what is this, like a Sims game? What exactly is it that we're talking about when we say simulation? And what real gaps does it sort of fill in South Africa when it comes to training?
Okay, so let's sort of just place this in the greater scheme of things. So simulation starts right through your medical training.
Okay.
And then the part that we're involved in is your after qualification, your sort of postgraduate compliance type training that doctors, nurses, paramedics need to do to keep their ongoing registration and their competency in place. So simulation essentially means simulating real events or real environments in order to practice certain scenarios when they happen, so that when they happen, you are slick and good at getting it done. And that can be either done with real live humans or it can be done with mannequins and dummies and that sort of thing.
Okay. Sort of realism versus sort of value. Dr. Holt, how do you decide when a basic tabletop, how a low-tech drill is enough, and when do you need high-fidelity mannequins or virtual reality?
So look, I mean, it largely depends on your budget, I suppose,
I
that what is available. You don't need hugely expensive mannequins to do simulations. But what it does, it makes, certainly in the initial stages, it makes students much more, and I say students, the students that are doing the training, they may be qualified doctors or nurses, but it makes it much easier. It's less of a thing for the doctor to be practicing on a mannequin than it is to practice on a human.
Yes.
When we were training at Baragwanath, we had this mantra of see one, do one, teach one.
Okay.
And that is really good when you have nothing else to do or no other methodology to use.
Med school, I think you should have a lot to do.
But it's terrifying for the doctor and it's terrifying for a patient if you're having to have someone who's learning doing something on a real live human. So having a mannequin to practice on is obviously much less threatening for the student.
Yeah.
But having said that, there's lots of training that we still do simulations with real live mannequins, real live scenarios, either in hospital wards or in an office space or in fact creating a hospital environment in our training space where we use real live people. Ultrasound training, we want to ultrasound real things.
Yes, of course.
In order to be able to show people what they look like, measure them, and try and create sort of that scenario where people can learn efficiently.
Yes.
So that's kind of where we are. So it's budget dependent. If you've got the budget to get the very fancy new mannequins, then it's fantastic. You can practice all day. You can,
Edward,
yeah.
and there's no talkback.
Well, the new mannequins actually do talk.
Oh,
back.
really?
Yeah.
I was about to ask that because, like you're saying, things with ultrasound might require like an actual human. But with all the AI and technology advancements, I'm sure there are mannequins where you can get a pulse or whatever. Or are we not there yet?
No, we're definitely there. We've got mannequins in our training center now that you can have someone remotely talking through the mannequin. You can create simulation. We've got simulation pads that can simulate different heart rhythms, breathing, sweating, pain. You can put up IV lines on these mannequins.
That is
all of
crazy.
those things. So we've got mannequins that simulate everything from childbirth through to trauma victims and that sort of thing.
And then in terms of, I wanted to ask, like the kit that hospitals have, like what is the standard format kit, and what is super advanced, and should these things be available throughout? And what happens in the instance of like rural areas where it's a bit difficult for people to train there? What are we doing to close those gaps?
So, great question. I think every hospital that I've ever worked in has had a training department within their environment. And they do drills, be they mass casualty drills, or they do sort of resuscitation simulations, they do CPR simulations, all of that sort of thing in different locations within the hospital. Things don't go wrong only in the ICU. They go wrong everywhere in the hospital. And they usually go wrong in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I think, sure, it's a very broad question. Certainly every hospital has got training mannequins that people can go and practice CPR on, the basic stuff. Immediate life-saving stuff. They've usually got monitors and defibrillators and that people can test and learn how devices work. Certainly in the sort of more rural areas, they probably default more to simulation drills rather than sort of practicing on mannequins. But in my experience, every hospital's got those things and they run drills all the time.
So they have the basics covered.
They should do. They certainly should do. I think one thing that was interesting recently, and I was just talking to someone last week about it, in virtual healthcare, we're now having AI simulate different calls for us.
Cool,
So-
man.
So what
That's
they do, you can
awesome.
create any scenario, put it through the AI, or the AI creates the scenario and then talks with the doctor, so that we can practice different role plays and different scenarios with a live AI.
Which actually also answers, because I was going to say, yes, we get that you create the scenarios and how to solve them, but who's coming up with the scenarios? Because at that, you're just a medical doctor. There's only
100%.
so many stories you can come up with, or is there like an element of a creative brain that you have to come up with these stories? So it's good to see that AI has helped to bridge that. So maybe AI is not such a terrifying concept, because you know how people are like, oh, AI is coming to take jobs, and here it is in the instance of these scenarios, it's closing a gap.
Yeah. So I recently had a quick just to digress very quickly. A very good friend of mine, Dr. Mark Nasila. He's an AI doctor. And he said a few months ago, there were companies that were firing people left and right because they thought, goodness gracious me, AI can do all of this. And now these big companies, like I'm not going to mention names, but big, massive corporates, banking sector, all sorts of things, are rehiring all these people because AI couldn't do what they needed them to do.
Look, I think that's going to happen all over the place.
Yeah, exactly.
People are going to figure out what the tools can do and what the people can do.
Sure.
I just want to go back quickly, just in respect of training. We've been training, particularly in trauma, because I was very involved in trauma.
Yeah.
We were training short course medical training using scenarios and simulations since I qualified. So it's not a new thing.
Yes.
It's just that the tools have got better.
Yes.
And you can, there's common pitfalls that happen in healthcare that are very well known, but that particularly with junior doctors and nurses and paramedics, you need to make sure that people follow process and protocol in order to not miss or to avoid those pitfalls. So scenario training is a very common, long-standing thing that we've been doing. Adding the simulation in just makes those scenarios even better. So you can imagine an environment where now not only does the human mannequin act a particular way,
Yeah.
you can now get the mannequin to do many of those things
Okay.
and bleed and breathe and sweat and feel pain and have a heart rhythm much more than you can with an enacted human mannequin.
Okay, you've actually answered me, because I was gonna because I have a cousin who was a paramedic, and they also went through these drills and they were prepared for a lot of things. One thing she wasn't prepared for is what happens when the actual, because there was a fire that broke out. So she was prepared to help and they broke in, but she never could prepare for, I'm going to freeze once the flares are right in front of
Yeah.
me. So I guess you could take it to something as simple as people who faint when they see blood. Now that we have the mannequins, we know that they can practice the fainting
Yeah.
part at the side of blood too, whereas before that wasn't there. So I think it's pretty cool.
I actually do think. I mean, does it work? I mean, sort of, what are the outcomes? Sort of like after sim, fewer errors, faster teamwork, better time, sort of to intervention time, survival. Any sort of examples you could share?
Oh, there's so many. I think when I'll go back to trauma because it's such a nice example. In trauma, we are trained in a particular way. We follow a particular process in order to make sure that you evaluate the most important things first, and then you progress to the sometimes more obvious but less concerning problems. You know, a broken limb that is bent sideways is terrible to look at, but you're probably not going to die from it.
Yeah.
You may die from something much more innocuous that you can't see, like a foreign body or a broken tooth or something like
Yes.
that gets into the airway. So following process and protocol is taught as a single person. Then you get into teams, and now you can do things in parallel. And that's where a lot of the training has gone, certainly in the last few years, is that now I've got team leader, I've got person 1, person 2, person 3. And as a team leader, I'm now going to guide, say, the most junior person to hold the neck. And then I'm going to use the next most senior person to do the airway.
Sure.
Then someone else is going to control the breathing. Someone else is going to control the circulation. So you can start to make your whole team more efficient and be more prepared. So when it happens, if one person falls over because they are terrified or don't know what to do, you've got a group of people who are
Pick
in
up the
that
slack.
scenario and they can pick up the slack
Amazing.
quickly.
I think let's take a musical break.
Yeah.
And then we come back. On that teamwork, there's another question, also based off something I saw on TV. I always have to have a TV question. We'll be right back.
Maybe like,
The good times never stop. 919.
As is Ed Sheeran, something brand new. First Care Solutions, powering Medical Mondays today. Dr. Steve Holt. You want
I
to
had my
ask something?
series,
You had your
The Resident,
Yay!
courtesy of The Resident again. You were talking about how the simulation thing and the training also has to do with, you know, how one person will be focused on the breathing and then the neck and a lot of times when you watch these series, and I mean, God forbid it ever happens to anybody, because I always worry, like, what if I have 3 doctors around me and they're all debating on who should be doing what?
Yeah.
You know, because the other one is like, no, but you're not supposed to do it like that. So in the instance of teamwork, I'm sure those clashes happen sometimes where, you know, the one person maybe comes from a different hospital or was trained by somebody else and was taught, hey, this is where you're supposed to make the incision. And then now that they hear it's something opposite, what then happens? Do conflicts happen? Do you prepare for, in these training, do you ever say, hey, if a doctor tells you to hold a neck like this and you know it's not supposed to, you object, Your Honor, like, how do you just deal with the conflict of the teamwork?
Here it comes.
Because it's part of training, right?
It is part of training, and there's always the most senior person accepts the responsibility for what's going on in that environment. So it's an incredibly difficult scenario when a junior person stands up and says, I'm not doing that. That's not how the training works. But in healthcare, it becomes a bit like military. You know, you have to take command from the senior person because they're taking the responsibility. So if they instruct you, you have to do this, you have to do that. You can obviously question that. And I've witnessed many conflicts in that environment. Are you sure? Are you really sure we should be doing that?
Yeah.
And medical mistakes happen from senior people as well. But I think, again, the training is such that the protocols guide things in a particular way, specifically for the reason that you mentioned.
Yes.
If I come from one hospital, one country, or one university, we may have been taught things in a different way.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to, again, trauma is the best example, but it happens in cardiac, pediatric, everything. You have this situation where we teach one language so that if I say this, you know what I mean.
Yes.
In a healthcare environment. So if I say, feel a carotid, you don't go and feel somewhere else. You feel where the carotid
artery
is.
is.
And if we say we're doing the fifth intercostal space, you know how to find the fifth intercostal space. There has to be a way and a terminology that is used, and particularly in trauma, that is taught to the point of distraction, so that people know that if I say you're a grade 3 shock, you know what a grade 3 shock is.
Yes.
Everyone knows what a grade 3 shock is. I'm not saying a type 2 shock or you saying a grade 3. You can't have that. And then after sort of every major incident, event, near miss scenario, whatever it is, there's always debriefings and what we call mortality and morbidity and mortality meetings.
That's it.
So we'll sit down afterwards and we will talk through very bluntly with everyone around, non-judgmental, but bluntly, to say, this is what happened, this is what was done, how could we have done this better?
Yes.
And we go through that in huge detail.
Yeah.
And that part of that is just talking it through as humans and sort of saying, it's not about, hey, you didn't do this. That's usually not the scenario.
Yeah.
But this wasn't done. Let us think how we could have done it
Yes,
better.
absolutely.
What things could we have improved on in terms of, should we have done this first and then that, or that, then this? And those are crucial to any kind of team sport.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure the All Blacks are doing that this weekend.
Definitely.
They're doing a bit of a post-mortem on their performance,
As we did the week before.
as we did the week before, and we got better.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's exactly the same thing that you do in healthcare.
Yeah.
You go through those morbidity and mortality meetings. You are prepared, particularly as a junior person, to learn a few things
Yeah, of
and
course.
be told you don't
Yeah.
do it like that next time. But and that creates better teams.
From a rural sort of resource, a limited resource sort of scenario, what's the minimum kit sort of format district hospitals clinic can use to run meaningful monthly simulations?
Look, ideally you want mannequins to be able to improve techniques of, say, CPR. So I would say those kinds of things are basic minimums. You need CPR mannequins. They're relatively inexpensive, and most hospitals will have them.
Yeah.
Whether they know where they are or whether they maintain properly and clean properly, that remains to be seen.
Seeing news.
But I think basic CPR, and then knowing what to do in the event of, who to call, those kinds of scenarios are done all the time. Major disaster scenarios, if there's a bus accident or a fire where there's lots of people who've had smoke inhalation, you've got to have a process and a policy to deal with that ahead of time.
Yeah.
And you've got to know where everything is, and you've got to know that the kits have been checked, and so there's a lot of planning that goes into scenarios and simulation. Having said that, you don't need a huge amount of equipment to do this.
Yeah.
And I know we do quite a lot of this in the emergency unit environment that we work in. We'll just stop for the moment and say, right, gather around. We had a case like this yesterday. This and this and this is how it was done.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. And we'll talk about it and talk about different ways, different approaches, different people's ideas. Some people may say, look, sure, I've never even heard of that.
Yeah.
Some people say, yeah, but I was taught to do it like this. Because everything, how you put in an IV line, how I do it, trained at Wits versus how someone trained at Cape Town, you may have been trained differently.
Yes.
And sometimes you think, shucks, that's actually good. I'd like to do it that way.
Yeah.
You're talking about how there's different ways in which people do But apart from different, this is more to speak to scenarios, right? And maybe it's a stupid question, but like they say in school, there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Correct.
So yes, there's training and there's simulation for things like accidents, the smoking. You've listed a whole bunch of them. But in the event where it's something that's never happened before, do you get what I'm trying to ask? Is there, let's say, like with COVID wasn't there before, right?
Yeah.
And so does that mean when there's a new thing that hasn't happened before, there's new training and simulation that then has to be practiced? So every time there's it's an ever learning journey of going back to school. You know how they say with lawyers, they have to keep their textbooks forever because it's always changing, chopping and changing. Can the same be said for simulation and training?
Absolutely. I mean, things do change all the time. New evidence becomes available, healthcare, legal. It's changing all the time. That's why you have to keep current and keep your CPD up to date.
Yeah.
We were talking about this because there's a new AI tool called AI Evidence. It's released. I'm not sure who the people are behind it, but if you can imagine, when I graduated and went into practice, 4 or 5 years into practice, and emergency medicine was a very new discipline at that stage. We had a list of things that doctors should never fail to check.
Yes.
You know, so if you had a woman of childbearing age, you always did a pregnancy test just in case.
Yes.
Person may not know, not suspect, you always did that. In a child with a fever, you always did a urinary test.
Yeah.
So there were little sort of pills. We actually called them pills of wisdom that you should or shouldn't do.
Yeah.
When you get to, and that sort of, if you can take that, we then created protocols and policies for how you treat a dog bite, how you treat this, how you treat that.
Yes.
So those, and we used to update them once a year.
Got you.
They were outdated by the time we had kind of written them because there was new information, new protocols, new drug resistance, everything changing all the time.
Of course.
Then we got a new program called Update. And Update would make available updated information to you all the time. Now there's Evidence AI, which now takes all the literature from everywhere around the world and it collates it into any topic that you want from an AI perspective. That is growing. It's one of the fastest adopted softwares that that we've ever seen. That doctors are now using this to look at absolutely any topic they want to get the most latest updated information. So experience is one thing, and in infectious diseases, whether it's COVID or TB or hemorrhagic fever, you've got to nurse in a particular way, make sure you're protected, your PPE, all of those sorts of things. So you have a way of approaching it, even though it may be completely new. But I think what is happening now is that we as doctors are needing to use the most up-to-date information that we can find. If we're not doing that, we're going to be remiss, and it is hard because it's changing all the time. So the new tools, particularly the AI tools, I think are going to make doctors better because they're giving them the latest information almost in real time of a new development.
Of course.
So you don't have a choice but to pull up your socks.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't. And everyone's worried that, AI is going to replace doctors. It's not going to replace doctors. AI is going to give you a better tool to do a better job more efficiently,
absolutely.
that sort of thing. I'm not concerned that doctors are disappearing just yet.
My last question, Doc, we called it the 90-day rollout. If a hospital wants to start next month, what is your step-by-step plan? People to appoint, cadence, debrief, standards, metrics to track, simple budget frame.
Goodness me, that's a McKinsey question.
Best one for last.
Look, again, I think anything is better than nothing. So you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Usually identifying high-risk areas, and I mean, you can go online and find out what all the high-risk areas are. You can get a framework using AI. You can start with dedicated training of all your staff to make sure they have the latest up-to-date courses in their particular area of expertise.
Yes.
So if you're a person that looks after trauma and emergencies, you need to have done the latest training
Yes.
and be up to date in that stuff.
Mm.
I think
Gotcha.
that would be the first thing that I would do.
Yeah.
Then I would make sure and designate someone in every area in
Yeah.
the hospital as the person who is going to be responsible for making sure everyone's up to date,
Yeah.
and then refreshing those skills on a regular basis. And you can start with almost zero budget.
Really?
Okay, with that you can just identify. You can have sessions in. We do it in the emergency rooms. You know, it's quiet between 10 and 12, and on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Let's have
Do
a
the
sim.
thing, man.
Do it, test it, and you don't have to get a formal qualification
Yeah.
each time you train.
Mm.
It's about practice. It's about
Yes.
reaffirming processes, reaffirming
Yeah.
protocols, and procedures.
Practice makes perfect.
It does.
Definitely.
It does. Do you does First Care Solutions? You guys do training of some sort, right? Or is this for the public, or is this for people who are sort of or existing doctors? And if they want to say, let's go to First Care Solutions, how do they do that?
Yeah, so we started doing training because we needed to make sure our own doctors were up to speed on all the things that we needed them to be in
Yeah.
emergency medicine, and then we extended it to nurses and to paramedics as part of that ecosystem that you were talking about. And then what we realized, because so many patients would come in and they would, a child would come in with a fever or
Yeah.
a fit after a fever, or heaven forbid near drownings, those sorts of things. We started doing more and more public training.
Yeah.
The basic stuff like first aid, CPR, and making sure that people could deal with common emergencies.
Yes.
So we've started doing that probably, in fact, soon after COVID.
Okay.
And there's a lot now that's available online. There's a lot that is sort of blended learning, and then there's a lot that's face-to-face. So you can go to, we've called it the Africa Institute of Emergency Medicine,
Aim. Yeah.
AIM, and you can go online and you can book courses. And
Amazing.
if you get a group of people together, we'll come and do it at your home even.
Yeah.
So right
super cool.
from kiddies through to workplace to wherever, we'll do the public training as well.
Listen, I definitely need it because my response to everything is run.
Which direction?
Opposite. I never run into danger. It's always away from
from
the
it.
danger. So I definitely think it's a skill that at least one person should have
Absolutely.
in every household. So they just go to, is there a website,
www.aim.co.za. And
Okay.
everything's online there.
Awesome. Thank you for the playbook. We all feel much better because now we know if we want to upskill and learn, and we know that our medical professionals have been upskilled and they are learning. So we're in the
and they
safest
know
hands.
what they're doing.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think they know what they're doing because, guys, I really need to stay off the medical series.
to leave Google alone.
Because it's not Google, it's these series on TV. And I'm
the
like,
TV.
what? No ways. So thank you again for, filling in the gaps for my fellow TV watchers that consume everything and anything under the sun. It's always a pleasure to have
Those
you.
things are always dramatized, but they do happen, just not quite as frequently as they do on ER.
Just like the last second, what is the most real TV one you've ever seen? Like, what is as close to accurate
It's
as possible?
definitely not Dr. House.
No. That's a bit blunt sometimes. I think ER is the
I
one
thought
that
I thought so.
Look, it's my profession, so I scrutinize that a lot. And it was pretty good. But all the drama that happens in the background, again, it's like the book Spud. Did you ever read the book Spud?
Yeah.
About the kid at school.
Yes.
That was every student's experience condensed into a 1.5 hour
Yeah.
movie.
Yes.
It's the same with those TV
With those
dramas.
medical dramas.
They have
Okay.
the drama here. Imagine having all those dramas all the time, man. You'd go crazy.
Well, you're still going to get more of those questions. We're doing it for the people.
Absolutely.
That's crazy. Dr. Steve Holt, thank you so much for your time, your knowledge, and for helping us make us feel a little bit safer.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys.
Take it.
See you next week. Is it you again?
I think so.
Oh, yay.
You're going to have to bring donuts for us.
Oh, that's a good
He's a doctor. You can't ask the doctor for donuts.
I can.
And you'll ask me about Ozempic in the same sentence.
I will never.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Music break, and then we've
let's
got
do
more
music.
midday stuff.
Usually we're going to dance on the table now. We make Steve dance on the table.
Wonderful.